you're not really prepared for the fullness of what I'm going to show you. And this should leave you for maybe even years to come just pondering this in so many different ways. This is video 8 to Year Gods. Video 7 is still going to be uploaded, which is just going to be a continuation of video number 6. But I do want to share this with you right now. And believe it or not, it's just going to fulfill in such a unique way everything that we've talked about in this series of Year Gods. You know, it's just brought us to a pinnacle. And when I say we go from lesser reflections to higher reflections, we're really going to move to a higher reflection of truth here. So, for me personally, this is tangible proof that I experience, that I'm currently enveloped in, actually, just completely surrounded by this type of spiritual precision of synchronicity. It's just unbelievable. And I want you to experience it too. So if you've watched the series Ye Are Gods, you should really begin to easily pick up on the relation of the themes here of what I'm going to talk about. If not, let this be motivation for you to watch that series. Alright, all of this is going to come down to me earlier reviewing some of my videos, just looking through, and I ended up watching The World is a Wilderness. It's a video I did about a year ago. It's a poem I wrote. It's very short. And, you know, I was going through a lot then, kind of like, in a way, the way things are and have been for a little while now. You know, with some strange people hanging around and doing some strange things. And, you know, I was writing in that perspective at that time that, you know, the title, The World is a Wilderness, you know. It was a rough place, you know. A lot of people were who I thought were my friends were really not my friends. And I just felt like I was surrounded by people that just meant me no good, just like a lot of predators, you know. So that motivated the poem. And wow, even as I look back now real quick, if you watch the video I did for the new subs and everybody who was sincere, I talked about what these people are doing, and they call it the game. It's like they're playing a game. Not necessarily that they think it's a game, but it's a game that they're trying to play with my head in a way to where they pretend to be people that are for me that really are not. And then they just break away and cause all this disruption or make it look like I attacked them or something like that. It's kind of like a game they're trying to play with my head. It's playing a game with your head. Well, in the poem, you even hear me say this and talking about these lazy ones along the way that are trying to get you to stop your work and play. And that's what I'm doing, you know. I'm doing my best to fulfill this work that I need to do. And these people are playing these games around me. They don't really realize what they're actually trying to hinder. They really don't. If they did, they wouldn't be doing it. And maybe they'll see you here. I don't know. So this is just the beginning of the synchronicities here. The world is a wilderness. Wilderness. This instantly relates us right now to what we've been talking about in the Ye Are God series, because of the Sinai Peninsula is a wilderness. Mount Sinai is synonymous with Horeb, and Horeb means wilderness. It means wasteland. And then in the perspective in video 6 of how we begin to start talking about the Judean wilderness, and then the diagram that I show you where we have these lesser leviathans at this point that are trying to disturb the water line. And then of course we know under them we got the footmen that are doing their best to disrupt also. So the world is a wilderness is unique now because in every way you're going to see it's going to fulfill with all the themes of this Year God video series we're on. And like, you're just not ready for it. And when I say that, I mean, don't take that lightly. I'm serious. You know, please hear me out here. I mean, really, you'll see it at the end. Please hear me out. So, an outright miracle truly does take place on that video in itself. All right? And I do a video about it. I'm showing you a picture basically out of a magazine, okay, when I'm reciting this poem. And the picture is of Jesus, an image of Jesus that I took out of a magazine that so happens to be a statue, I think, that's in Brazil. A real famous, super huge stone-like statue of Jesus, and he's got his arms stretched out like facing you. It's just an incredible picture, in my opinion. So I was motivated to use that as the backdrop. So it's just a picture sitting on my desk of paper, magazine paper, with the image of Jesus on it. Well, the first thing that becomes striking to me when I do this is that the image color doesn't come out on video the same that it is on magazine. When you view it, you'll see that Jesus is bright gold. I mean, I'm not just talking yellow. I'm talking he is bright gold, like the element gold. And it's not like that in the magazine. It just happens like that in the video. And at that time, I kind of was like, well, you know, Jesus is representing himself as the true golden age. And we're going to see the high reflection of that with what we're talking about in this gold series. It's just going to blow you away. So, not only is Jesus gold, and he's not in the magazine, turns out that way, but the whole background shows up purple in the video. Well, we know purple, you know, from my perspective here on this channel, is associated with the last crown chakra. It's associated with the serpent piercing through the dome, piercing through the capital, piercing through the top of the head, and then that head would be represented by the White House, which is the capital, the dome, and then this is represented by the serpent destruction of the United States, symbolized by the birthing location of commercial Babylon, the Big Apple, New York, New York, where the millstone is going to come down off the coast of that great city. So that's the birthing point where the water breaks, the true destruction, which will then allow the serpent rise through this philosophical, occult, ritual geometry of the architecture of the White House, being symbolized as Ephraim's head that we saw Jacob prophesize in Genesis chapter 49, that the crown would be atop Ephraim's head. All the blessings of thy progenitors shall be heaped atop Ephraim's head. You know, the descendancy of Joseph. So this crown, you'll see further in some other videos, is referred to as a flower. We know that that's the lotus flower, and it's directly referred to Ephraim. And this prophet even describes him, that his flower is going to wilt. So nonetheless, it is truly all about this last crown chakra, which is symbolized by destruction. The last crown chakra is purple. They must have destruction to achieve it. That's what this purple is really all about, guys. That's what they're showing you. The purple represents the royalty that they believe they're going to achieve after this last crown chakra, the piercing, the destruction, the fall of the United States. Okay? So, not only do we have Jesus as appearing as bright gold, the whole background is purple. At the 13-second mark, the image of Jesus, just the image of Jesus, at exactly 13 seconds, disappears off the screen. Now that was a miracle in its own right. At that point, I took that as a major spirit sign, and for good reason. But we're going to see that this manifests higher in understanding as we go through this, and that's just going to be the undeniable incredibleness of this here. So at 13 seconds, just the image of Jesus disappears off the screen. And if you watch it, I want you to realize that it is truly a supernatural thing that happened. I do these videos from an Android phone. Okay, I don't have a computer. I don't have computer skills. I barely am able to run this channel, to tell you the truth, because most of my features on my phone don't work, and then I really only know how to do a few limited things, to tell you the truth. So if you look, you'll notice that there's some wrinkles at the top of the magazine page, that when the image of Jesus disappears, those wrinkles stay there. In other words, it's not just a blip in the screen, the whole screen goes out. It's literally just the image of Jesus that's removed. Now, at the 13-second mark, that's very obvious of what that means, because I've been telling you that at the second cup, which is the fire from the sky, the millstone, which is Revelation chapter 13, verse 13, which is committed by the act of Ephraim, which is the 13th tribe of Israel, who is trying to bring about the 13th judge of Israel, Dan, at the end of the 13th Baktun, all aligned with the 13th sign of the zodiac, the ending of the 13 levels of the pyramid on the dollar bill, associated with the 13 olive branches, the 13 arrows, the 13 first colonies founded by the English from the United States. The list goes on. The 13 associated with Revelation chapter 13, verse 13, is the trigger for the second cup, which is the trigger, the final straw that brings down the seal, which will allow the 13th judge, Dan, these locusts, into our dominion, because they only come after the cities are forsaken in ruins. And that great city of which we're talking about is represented in New York City, second cup, commercial Babylon. And you can see that utterly blew me away and many people away that were following this channel at that time. We were all just absolutely blown away. Now, like I said, we didn't put too much perspective in the gold. I didn't talk too much probably about the purple background with the chakra in the video where I talked about the miracle that happened. I really just focused on the 13 and that how amazing it was that the spirit confirmation that Jesus was showing us that yes, absolutely, that this second cup is associated with this strong delusion, this great falling away where they're trying to remove Jesus out of sight, out of mind. That's what they want. All right. Well, just now, know that Jesus being bright gold and all that was by no accident, because you should be beginning to remember what Jesus Christ said in that video series that we were talking about. And remember Jesus Christ's words right here, Revelation chapter 3, verse 18. I counsel thee to buy of me gold tried in the fire. Now we're about to expand this in a way that you're not ready for. I counsel thee to buy of me gold tried in the fire. So now absorb that once you go watch this video I did a year ago that is in no way related to anything we're talking about, that consciously for me, this all takes place within my superconsciousness, not my subconsciousness, my superconsciousness, the portion of me that's in contact with the Spirit of Truth that is divinely leading me as it has divinely leaded others If it can divinely lead others in the past, it can certainly divinely lead us in the present. And I will testify for me, and you will see it is. So Jesus is bright gold, stretching his arms out. And then as we see this connection with him disappearing off the scene at the 13 seconds, we see that they deny him as the gold, and that they're trying to truly accept themselves as the gods. And then these gods are influencing them through the way to achieve this is by this material means that's associated with material gold. Okay, so they're rejecting him. They want to remove him. That's being displayed. But we see that Jesus quickly comes back. Quickly comes back. It's only for a moment that this strong delusion or this new world order begins to take hold, and then Jesus returns. Now, what's incredible that even at the 13-second mark, the words that I'm saying in the poem, if I can remember correctly, is describing that you're never going to find this place, you know? You won't get to this place of rest. You won't get to this place of paradise. That's not the exact words, but at that moment I'm saying that if you don't believe in doing this work, if you don't believe in walking this path to its well-heard fame, and then at 13 seconds, Jesus disappears off the scene. All related, and you'll see that if you watch it. Okay. So, the video is only 40 seconds long. Okay. Now, it says on one portion of my channel, when I look at my video uploads, it puts it on the screen at 41, but when I play it, the video plays at 40 seconds, and that's it. 40 seconds is what it registers, and that's amazing in itself. Now, as I'm realizing, as it's connected to this wilderness, as it's connected to everything about that, is all located with 40s. The number 40 is the theme for their wandering, Moses and the Israelites, through the wilderness. It's even consistent with Jesus Christ on the Mount of Transfiguration, the number for 40 also. So the world is a wilderness, biblically associated with 40, and it just so happens to play out at 40 seconds. Exactly. Now there's a higher meaning in the poem. If you go and listen to this and you begin to feel what I'm saying and understand, even for the people who are not sincere, there's a higher meaning for you guys also. So now, let me get to what is absolutely amazing, that is just going to just blow you away. And it's going to be associated with Jesus disappearing, as you now see that Jesus is bright gold. And then we're going to time this up with what we see in Jesus Christ's words, where he says, I counsel thee to buy of me gold tried in the fire. Watch how this manifests. I'm going to read a half a page and from another full page. Listen closely. It will somewhat explain itself, and you'll begin to pick up on something that's going to be related to Jesus Christ's disappearance, and then I'll explain to you what I feel about it. This portion here is going to be describing the monatomic gold, the process of how it's created and the science behind it, and you're going to see that it is absolutely reflective of the same thing that happens on that video. So what precisely is the highward condition that converts gold and other noble metals into the impalpable white powder of the paradise stone? And what exactly was its advantage when ingested by the ancient kings of the House of Gold in Mesopotamia, Egypt, and later Judea? In modern scientific terms, Highward is identified as high spin. That is to say, an element in a high spin state. A normal atom has around it a screening potential, a positive screening produced by the nucleus, a positive screening produced by the nucleus. The majority of electrons going round the nucleus are within this screening potential, except for the very outer electrons. The nucleus goes to the highward or high spin state when the positive screening potential expands to bring all electrons under the control of the nucleus. Okay, now I didn't read that well, but you can pause it right there and read it for yourself and understand it better. But this is just some of the background foundation information here. As we move forward, it'll begin to make more sense. These electrons normally travel around the nucleus in pairs, a forward spinning electron and a reverse spinning electron. But when these come under the influence of a high spin nucleus, all the electrons begin spinning in the same direction. Remember the single path. Remember my video describing that there are two paths, but one is false. Ultimately, there is only one true direction. And it's not an alternating current that gets you there. It's not the AC. And you're going to see it begin to play out. That's not the miracle, though, but it's all fulfilling the fractal here. When perfectly correlated, the electrons turn to pure white light, and it becomes impossible for the individual atoms in the high-spin substance to hold together. On that account, they cannot retain the metallic state, and the substance falls apart to become a white monatomic powder. Now it's going to kind of explain it right here to what it just said. It says this. This is describing how this manna is created, how it's being created at that temple in Hathor that we see that was associated with Moses and the Israelites. In simple terms, the white powder is created by striking the metal sample under strictly controlled conditions for a predetermined time with a designated high heat from a DC electric arc, a single directional current between two electrodes, not an alternating current. Not how these leviathans. Now, this is going to fulfill the fractal for these people that are believing in doing this knowledge of good and evil is supposed to achieve some sort of divinity. It don't. Even in the gold that they trust in, the action itself is showing you that it's only a direct current, a single path that can bring this together and reverse the duality and bring this together as the harmony to achieve the greater spiritual truth of the matter. So the reality of the Leviathans that are trying to run the alternating current to supposedly achieve the unity of the divergent polarities don't happen. It don't happen. It don't happen even within their own philosophy of the gold, which is supposed to be perceiving their potential. Because remember, Jesus Christ is the creator of the elements. So within his elements are going to be found the actuality of the truth. That it's the single path. That it's not the alternating current. That it's not the AC that's going to be able to bring you to divine potential. In other words, listen again. In simple terms, the white powder is created by striking the metal sample under strictly controlled conditions. Now remember, Lucifer and Satan are both associated with lightning. And I saw Satan fall from heaven like lightning. They're associated with electricity, not necessarily because they're the creators of electricity, but because they're associated with the manipulation of electricities through these technologies. And then therefore they've kind of almost adopted them for their own symbolically, but in reality, electricity is a creation of the Father, just like the element gold is a creation of the Father. So we see within the electrical process, as it interacts with the gold, we see that it's not the alternating current. It's not this up and down alternation of the divergent polarities, just like you would see in the alternating current of electricity, that it is the direct current, the direct personal relationship, the one path trod inward to the perfection potential of your material being, all supplied by the truth of Jesus Christ and everything around you. But this still ain't it. This ain't even it. You just wait. So in simple terms, the white powder is created by striking the metal sample under strictly controlled conditions for a predetermined time with a designated high heat from a DC electric arc, a single directional current between two electrodes. But the truly unusual thing about the powder is that through continuous sequences of heating and cooling, its weight will rise and fall to hundreds of % above its optimum weight and down to less than absolutely nothing. And I'll explain that. Moreover, its optimum weight is actually 56% of the metal weight from which it was transmuted. So where does the other 44% go? Now, 44 should begin to start making some connections, because when we're dealing with this 44, watch my video series entitled 44 Divide and Conquer. Understand that Obama is the 44th president. We have the dispersion of Israel with the 44th king. We have an incredible amount of interconnecting, interlocking connections with things disappearing or supposedly rapidly evolving, or in this case, transmuting to an entire new dimensional perspective associated with this 44. We'll begin to understand a little bit deeper about their philosophy of this understanding of this timing of the 44 for the demise or the disappearance of the United States. So where does the other 44% go? Okay, you won't believe this. It says it becomes nothing but pure white light and translates into a dimension beyond the physical plane. Remember Jesus disappearing off the screen. Now, at 13 seconds, at this point, that might not seem to be a complete fit yet, but it will. But let's just focus now and understand that Jesus is comparing himself. It's starting to hit you now, isn't it? It's starting to hit you. Jesus is comparing himself to this manna, and he's comparing himself to the process of how this manna is created. I counsel thee to buy of me gold tried in the fire. Talking about this monatomic gold, which is being tried by this very high heat that is being produced by this direct arc electricity with designated high heat gold tried by the fire. And I've showed you, if you've watched the series, how we're literally talking about this powdered gold substance that they were making in the temple of Hathor. They even found the substance there. It's even in the records that they found that white powdery substance in that temple. That's what we're talking about. It's recorded in the Bible. Now begin to listen further to understand how a year ago on one of my videos, the Spirit of Truth fully manifested in such an expanded way to envelop the higher truths that we're now beginning to learn 1 year later, and you still have not yet seen how it fulfills. It says it becomes nothing but pure white light and translates into a dimension beyond the physical plane, the dimension of the orbit of light, which the ancients called the plane of Share-On. Now, this is their interpretation of what they believe a spiritual abode is. an alternate dimension that they themselves think that they will experience. And it's also where the pharaohs believed themselves to go when they were partaking of this mezkeft. They would go into this field of Sharon, and that, if I remember correctly, it's associated also with their travels that is recorded in the Egyptian Book of the Dead. That this is that location, this is that dimension that they're trying to achieve. In other words, it's their version through the gold that they believe that they're going to achieve the spiritual abode. But as Jesus tells you, no, it's not. And as you see, he is correctly comparing himself to the one thing in their doctrine that is trying to compare itself to him, but in the shadow, not in the clear light of the truth. They're experiencing the material shadow of the truth. They're experiencing a backwards reflection of the casting of the truth, and they're not realizing what the ultimate source is of this truth itself. It's the creator of the gold. It's not the gold. The shadow will always follow the substance. In this case, gold is not the substance. It's still a material shadow, albeit a very dynamic material shadow, which has been created as this material dynamo, this superconductor for mankind and his benefit, in a technological way and possibly in an anatomical way, but not in the way of which you see was designed for these fallen sons of God to use it. Not in that way whatsoever. Because in that philosophy, the gold is how you achieve your divinity. It's how you achieve your place in the spirit abode, in the supposed field of Sharon. But Jesus Christ is telling you that, no, you're misinterpreting a deeper mystery, and you're only taking limited information and beginning to form conclusions that are not real, that are based on lack of information. My people should be destroyed by lack of knowledge. Even these ones that think they're so knowledgeable. It's not an alternating current. It's a direct current. It's a single path. It's not using the knowledge of good and evil. It's using strictly the knowledge of good to overcome evil. That's what leads a man or a woman to perfection. So where does the other 44% go? It becomes nothing but pure white light and translates into a dimension beyond the physical plane. Jesus is the one, as he disappears, he's the one that translates, transmutates, can transfigure into the true spiritual plane, just like we know Jesus Christ is right now, and that he's not limited, and that spirit is being poured out for anyone who is able to receive it, who is able to receive these spontaneous spiritual fruits. So the dimension of the orbit of light, which the ancients called the plane of Sharon, or the field of Niftxt, the field of monatomic gold. It says, at the zero-weight stage, not only does the substance become invisible, remember, Jesus disappears, invisible. Not only does the substance become invisible and weigh less than nothing, but the pan in which it sits also registers less than its starting weight. This conforms precisely with the Alexandrian text about sacred manna, which states that when placed in the scales, the paradise stone can outweigh its quantity of gold, but when it is converted to dust, even a feather will tip the scales against it. All right. This is where we begin to start talking about how the pyramids were created, and how these stones were stacked, and how this technology is to be used by mankind, all of mankind. But it's been lost to us, and the ones who originally used it were the sons of God, but they used it when they weren't fallen. Those first 3 pyramids in Giza were built when the sons of God were all singing together for joy. And as I told you before, those pyramids associated with the Great Pyramid of Giza itself are designed and created to store, house, and organize souls. The souls of mankind, both the righteous and the unrighteous, both the hot and both the cold. And they were designed and built by the sons of God before they rebelled on this world. Most certainly are. If you watch the pet goat video at the end, what do you see they do? They try to destroy. They show you those pyramids are being destroyed by what? By what? Some comets and asteroids coming from the sky. And that's associated with what? Breaking the seal, in which they believe that they're going to be able to loose what? These beings in our world. So they're also trying to loose spirit beings by the supposed destruction of the Great Pyramids of Giza. But it don't work. It don't work. The Bible even clarifies that these spirit beings, no other spirit beings will be manifested into the material realm except this one son of perdition who has the power to perform this strange act. Now, it does cite in other scriptures that these kings of the Medes will be manifested with him, but there's other scriptures that I've found later where other prophets say that no, they don't ever reach it. These other spirit ones don't. But yes, the fallen prince does. He will come into material form, and he will be associated with the living descendancy of the sons of God who are currently living in under the earth, that are not in spirit form, that are still in material form, that are a living material descendancy, that are these leviathans that are illuminated, that are channeling and are possessed and illuminated by this fallen spirit by the way of this rising kundalini, but which has interacted with their unique genetics that is completely and far superior to the genetics of the supposed elites on this world. So they're truly illuminated. They're actually truly glowing with light, which will give rise to why so many people will fall to them, because they're going to believe that they're Elohim of the book of Genesis, and they're going to believe that they're associated with the legends of how the halos were depicted on the ancient holy men of the past, because they will literally fulfill that like you wouldn't believe. So how do you think a strong delusion is going to be strong to make people deceived if they already figured it out and know that Obama's evil and it's all like that? That ain't deceiving nobody. They're going to run a huge deception on this world, and there's people already preparing you guys for it right now, and I'm helping you to overcome it as best I can. That's all I can say. So let me do you a favor, and there's a whole bunch more we're going to talk about this as we move through this Year God series and start talking about this, because it's all related. But I'm going to let you read this again on your own. Pause it right there when you got the time, and pause it right there. I'm going to give you the name of the book and show you that too. And I'm going to come up to the second part here, and you can pause and read that, and then you can pause and read that again, and you can pause and read that. Okay. Now there's a whole bunch that needs to be understood here. When it starts talking about it transmutating its weight to even the pan that it's sitting in, that's where you start to understand how these stone blocks were floated into place. That there was no huge ramp, there was no huge group of slaves. I'm telling you, this is when the sons of God were all shouting for joy. There weren't slaves then. These sons of God built that pyramid complex for a divine reason on this world. You just don't really understand the fulfillment of their symbolism, where they're trying to bring this being to the top of that pyramid, basically up and out of where he's being supposedly stored. But it's really not even him, the fallen prince, that's being stored there, because he's not a part of the souls of men. the fallen prince is sealed, but he's not actually sealed in that pyramid. I know it's a lot of stuff that's hard for you guys to understand, but he's not. It's the souls of men, even the descendancy of these fallen sons of God, because they're a part of the portion of the generations of men. And you saw in the Bible verse where it says in Ezekiel chapter 18 that the sons are not going to be condemned by the sins of the father. And that goes for the sons of God also. That their fathers, the Anunnaki, who produced them, these beings not written into the book of life, the Nephilim, they're not being condemned. The children that have their teeth set on edge, the Nephilim, they're not being condemned for the sons of the Father. They're still a part of the descendancy of men through their mother bloodlines of mankind. These mothers are mankind also. So therefore, they're being stored in the same location underneath the Pyramid of Giza. And that is why you see in the Pyramid of Giza complex, the whole thing is like a, it says they're being held in crystal. And you have to understand about the quartz crystal that the pyramid, the interior of the Pyramid of Giza is built from. All of these chambers and all of this stuff is about high spirit science. Spirit is energy. And it tells you that terrestrial spirits born on earth will stay on earth. It plainly tells you that these souls are stored here. This is where they're stored. This is the one portion of the system of where these souls are stored. X marks the spot. X marks the spot. And it's multi-layered, okay? There's multiple things that are going to come out of that, and other things that are going to connect to that, and layer on top of that, and compound and build. Don't just take me so cut and dry when I say it like that. There's many variables that need to be covered within that expression. But in order to keep this video short enough to understand, you just need to know that that Sphinx out there that is depicting a half man, a half lion, what were those sons of God? They were considered lions' whelps, were they not? Was Dan not considered a lion's whelp? In Ezekiel chapter 19, were they not considered lions' whelps? Okay? Is Jesus Christ not the king truly of this wilderness? Truly? The straight and narrow? Right? Truly the king of the Judean wilderness. Right? So these original sons of God that were originally under his hierarchy were considered young lions. And now you understand what the Sphinx symbolism is truly about. That it's about the storage of souls, even the storage of the souls of the sons of God in that location. Right there. And it even says it in Ezekiel chapter 19. It says they were brought to chains in the land of Egypt and brought down in the pit. And that's the place where they're being stored. It's the association why people think souls go to hell, and especially these sons of God souls go to hell, because they're going down into this earth location where they're being stored in crystal, as it plainly says it. And if you haven't seen this yet, let's say that you have all right, that's a hexagon. The geometry that connects this on the outside is a hexagon. Okay? That line to there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's a hexagon. So the hexagon is now what you would see if we were to get rid of the Star of David that's on the inside and just focus on the geometry that's on the outside. What do you begin to see right there? Well, you see the cross-section of a quartz crystal if it was going to be cut in half. Quartz crystals are hexagonal. In other words, the geometry for the tetrahedron is within the quartz. All right? And so when we even do this, it begins to make it look like a cut diamond. Now, you see that? It begins to look like the top of the quartz crystal that forms with its 6 sides. So if you were to take a quartz crystal that was long, and I'm just kind of like drawing one on its side here, where it would have some multiple sides and then the lines going, and it has 6 sides. If we were to cut that in half right there, the quartz crystal, it would literally make the geometry right there. Cut that in half, pick this part up, and look straight down at it, and there's the geometry for the star tetrahedron. Right there, the Star of David. And then it looks like a crystal when we form it around there. And what does the Bible say? What does the book of Enoch says? It says that these beings are stored in crystal. Now it makes sense that if terrestrial spirits are bound on earth, or terrestrial spirits that are born on earth must stay on earth until they are risen. Just like you see in Revelation, Jesus Christ returns to raise the dead, right? To raise the dead. So if this pet goat video is supposed to be all some sort of deceptive, sneaky type stuff, all coded about this Antichrist and stuff, and why in the end of it are they trying to show the pyramids being destroyed, and it's even associated with comets and asteroids, that I'm telling you that that's all associated with breaking the seal, which now you begin to see all this is associated with the seal, which is the crystal, which now the pyramids of Giza being quartz, which is hexagonal, begins to form in your mind, and to see the ultimate connections here. So it's all there. It's all there. I don't know. Hold on here. I know this is so much for you guys to take in the way that I explain it. Not that you guys couldn't take it in if somebody was explaining this better. All right? Because my problem is I see it all at once. It's hard for me to break it down to you into the smaller segments, speak about them, and then pull it all together as one thing again the way that I already see it. It's monotonous for me. It's monotony because I already know it, and for me to constantly go over it and talk about it so much, it just gets monotonous, and I feel that sometimes I don't explain it well because me myself begins to get tired of even hearing my own voice. I'm just being honest. So it's tough. All right, guys, I'm going to try to sum this up and get you to understand that Jesus disappearing on the screen is even mimicking the action of the monatomic gold as it disappears. As it disappears. Incredible. Incredible. He says, I counsel thee to buy of me gold tried in the fire. Everything about that poem is reflective of all of that. Him being the color gold, the purple for the coming destruction, the disappearance, his return, him being reflected as the gold, the true gold, him even mimicking the supposed disappearance of the action of gold.